In today's video, I'm going to look at managing virtual teams. So I'm going to just give you an introduction, go through some slides from the Managing Virtual Teams training materials. Could be very useful, I hope. I'm Paul of Simmons Training. Let's get started. Managing Virtual Teams training. I'm going to take you to the PowerPoint that we've designed, and I'm going to talk you through some slides that I think are going to be useful. So let's start by looking at the skills of an effective virtual team leader. What kind of skills do you need? So to start with, you're going to have team skills already. You've already got skills as a leader, as a manager. You've got the traditional skills from leading a team in the workplace. And these skills are likely to include good communication skills, well, hopefully anyway, and you should be a good articulator and an inspiring leader, a good leader and mentor for your team. And hopefully you have good organizational skills. These are the skills that are ideal for a good leader in the workplace. If you are leading the virtual team though, then you will also need some additional skills. You will also ideally want to be even better in communication, so with more precision. Because you're not in the same physical space as the person that you are communicating with, you're not going to see things such as certain body language, so you need to make sure that you are more precise in the way that you communicate, even clearer and even more specific sometimes if you're leading a virtual team. You also want to be able to build trust. So because you cannot meet up at the coffee machine, chat with people, call them into your office quite easily, have discussions so easily one-to-one, you're going to have to find other ways to build trust, and it takes a little bit more effort when you're leading a virtual team. You will also need additional technological skills. You're not going to have the IT support person in the same building at hand to help you so quickly and so easily. Also, your team may need technological support, and they may turn to you as their leader, as their manager. Even if you yourself are not the technological expert, at least if you know who to turn to, who to direct them to, but you're going to need these skills as a virtual team leader. It's very possible also that your team may be spread out globally, because with working online, working in a virtual world, there is no limit to the geographical area that we can have colleagues working from. So you're going to want all of the above skills, but also cultural intelligence and logistical skills. So with cultural intelligence, it's understanding how to work with people from different cultures and to be culturally sensitive, but also to understand how to get the best out of different colleagues from different countries, regions, areas, cultures who work in a different way. You as the virtual team leader need to understand cultural intelligence. And with logistical skills, we're looking at things such as the different time zones that you need to accommodate and to think about. So these overall are the skills of an effective virtual team leader. And if we think about the challenges, so the areas you need to tackle in managing virtual teams. Motivation. Now, I've just done a video and a blog post on how to motivate virtual teams as a manager. I will include a link to that below this video if you're on YouTube. So you want to be able to motivate your virtual team, because when they're working alone, they're working from their own house, maybe the weather's bad outside, they have no one to push them, to guide them, but you as a manager virtually need to get your head and wrap your head around the idea of how to motivate virtual teams. Then we have the social engagement. So your colleagues who are working virtually are not getting the social engagement that they would if everybody was in the same office. So this does need to be considered. You need to think about the mental well-being and the team building. So you need to think about social engagement as a virtual team leader. Then there is the communication. So we've already said that you need to be even more specific. And then we've got the logistics. Again, we've got things like the time zones. Maybe you have customer service, so you need to cover the customer service for different hours of the day. So you need to think about time zones and customer service, this type of thing. So this needs to be thought about. All these 4 areas need to be considered in virtual team management. So if we take each of these 4 areas that we've just looked at on that last slide, we've got motivation. So what are the challenges in terms of motivation? Well, I have just discussed some of them. It's easier to be distracted when you're working from home. Somebody calls you on the phone, something good is on the TV in the background. Of course, you can understand it's much easier to be distracted when working from home, when working virtually. Colleagues can often feel an even greater sense of needing to get the work done and working outside of normal hours. The great thing about virtual work is you can allow your employees to have more flexible working hours, or depending, of course, on your company and your business or and people you're managing. But there is this risk of colleagues not being able to separate the work and the personal life. This is quite a big problem for a lot of people. And accountability. It can sometimes be harder to monitor your staff who are working virtually. You cannot see what they're doing, but accountability can sometimes be harder as a virtual team leader. Next, social engagement. What are the challenges? It's harder to socialize, and as a result, it's harder to build trust and cohesion. So we're talking about team building, really. It's harder for team building. Now you can do virtual team building, and this in fact is one of these solutions. In fact, I will include a link below this video to virtual team building exercises and icebreakers. We've got a free ebook on that as well. Free icebreakers for virtual teaching for virtual teams. That could be very useful. But team building becomes an issue, and it can be harder to share common ground. Your staff will be working in different environments, different places, and we can kind of, in a sense, drift apart a little bit more than if we were in the same office. And this is really important. Feeling of isolation and disconnection can happen for your staff. So of course, we have to consider the mental well-being, the mental health of our staff. And this is much easier to monitor and to control, in a sense, if they're in the workplace, because we get to see them, we can get a better sense of how they are, how they're feeling, and their mental well-being. But this can become an issue when they're working from home, and it's something we need to think about overcoming. And also cultural diversity. Now that can be a benefit because we have people working from different cultures, different locations, different environments, so we get greater knowledge. We can have greater input, and we can actually thrive even greater as a business, as a company. But this also has to be managed. Different people who are not used to working together as the manager and dealing with this virtually, this is something that you will need to overcome. But there are solutions and ways to manage this. Now with communication, it's harder to see the body language quite often. We can only see the upper half of the body when we're talking to people on screen. So the communication can be a little bit more challenging. Also, if we're doing a lot more on email because we're not seeing people in person, as you can probably appreciate, things can get misinterpreted much more easily. And it's easier for staff to ignore your communication. Imagine that you email a member of staff and 2 days later you haven't got an email back. In the same office, you could go and knock on the door or go to the desk where they are. But what can you do if they're not answering your emails or they don't answer the phone? Let's look at logistics. There's a high reliance on technology. So the way we are mostly communicating is probably by technology, computers, telephones. So there really is a lot of reliance on this. It's not about talking person to person, face to face. Technology is very, very highly involved, hence virtual working. So because we're not working in the building, we don't have access to the same type of IT support. We can't just call down Bob the engineer or Mary the technician and have them come down and sort out our network on our computer. It becomes a challenge. As we've mentioned a couple of times, we've got to manage across time zones. Well, it all depends, of course, where your employees, where your staff are working virtually from, but this can become a consideration. So just to take you on to Simmons training, a lot of these solutions are actually in the training course materials. And you can see it includes the PowerPoint slides. So that is, let me show you, that is actually 45 slides. It includes the activities and all the PowerPoint slides, everything you need. Includes a trainer's manual, participants workbook, sign-in sheet, everything you need for teaching, managing virtual teams. Let's take a look at a few of the slides. That's one you've just seen actually, teacher notes. One of the slides about how to manage the meetings, virtual meetings, from the students or participants workbook. So this is actually a half-day training. You could do it in 2 hours if you wanted to. You could make it smaller, but it can be done virtually. So you can teach it virtually to your managers who have to manage people virtually. Or this could be done in a physical classroom. And that is actually a 45-page PowerPoint, 45-page trainer's workbook, etc. I think you can see what's there. Also, some of the other training programs can be actually very, very useful for managing virtual teams. Let me show you the ones I'm thinking of. Intercultural communication, that can be a very, very good course to do. Very good for if you're managing virtual teams. So there's the managing virtual teams training course materials, but I think also the mental well-being for employees working from home, that can be very, very useful. Digital well-being training materials, that can be very, very good. So as the virtual manager, if you provide training for your staff, so you can provide it virtually, this certainly is one of these solutions. It's only one of the solutions, but this can really, really help. Mindfulness for busy people. And I think this is really important, time management. So the time management training. So one solution certainly is to provide training to your virtual colleagues, make sure they're all on the same page, that they all understand these different things that they can do to better manage their time, their own well-being, their own wellness. So there you have it. That's just really a very brief introduction to managing virtual teams, just to give you a taster. You can get the PowerPoint, the full PowerPoints if you wish to, the 40, 50 slides there if you want to, from the Managing Virtual Teams training materials. So we do videos every Thursday on Simmons training. I'd love to get your comments below, hopefully positive ones, but it'd be great to get your comments and your engagement below. You can subscribe to this video also. I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. See you soon.